Senator Kamala Harris is scheduled to speak Wednesday evening during the convention. She's set to become the first woman of color to run for the vice presidency on a major party ticket. Presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden selected Senator Harris from nearly a dozen contenders about a week ago. Edward Isaac Dovere looked into how Harris emerged as the top pick in a recent piece for The Atlantic titled "Why Joe Biden Picked Kamala Harris." Isaac is a staff writer for The Atlantic and joins me now. Let's also bring in Antjuan Seawright. He is a CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist. Welcome to you both. Isaac, let's begin with you. How did Kamala Harris emerge as Joe Biden's VP pick out of everyone else?
Well, a lot of it goes back to her presidential campaign. She emerged as the leading contender because she had run a presidential campaign that got a lot of people talking about her, but that didn't quite click at any point to move her into the top tier. She seemed like she was always on the verge of being in the top tier, and then it never came together, and eventually her campaign went into a nosedive and ran out of money, and she had to quit right after Thanksgiving last year. But in that time, she connected with voters. She also has this connection with Joe Biden that goes back. It's a very important thing. She was friends with Beau Biden, not a political friendship, but a real friendship that came together when they were both attorneys general, she in California and Beau Biden in Delaware. Those kinds of connections to Biden always mean a lot. He referenced that connection when he was introducing her in Wilmington last week. And when you put all those things together, the personal and the political calculations, looking at where the Biden campaign is hoping to push up the vote, making sure that there is not a drop-off in African-American voting as there was in 2016 versus 2012 when Barack Obama was on the ticket versus Hillary Clinton, that leads to a calculation that is all pointing toward Harris in a very strong way.
So, Antjuan, let's talk about this a little bit more. We've been noting, of course, the historical significance of selecting Kamala Harris as Joe Biden's running mate. How much of a focal point will that be, and should Democrats lean into that?
It will be a big focal point. You know, I said to you when this process started, this would be the most consequential decision that Joe Biden would make during the presidential primary process, and Joe Biden had the audacity to choose a consequential woman in Kamala Harris. He decided to not only write a black woman who with South Asian descent into history, but he wrote in the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority that she's a part of, the Links chapter that she's a part of, who spread all across the country, historical black colleges and universities, in which she's a graduate of Howard University. Not to mention, she wrote in every faction of this Democratic Party, because there's not one corner of this Democratic Party that Kamala Harris does not touch, inspire, or motivate. And for people who are worried about what happened in 2016 because of the lack of enthusiasm among what the smart people in Washington, D.C. describe as low propensity voters, I call them uninspired voters, Kamala Harris fills the missing piece to the puzzle. And so I think Joe Biden will lean on her skill set. I think he will lean on her ability to connect. And I think he will also lean on the fact that she brings things to the table that he perhaps may not be able to bring.
Isaac, looking at the records of both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, not just as lawmakers, but in Kamala Harris's case as a prosecutor, is it clear how a Biden-Harris administration might split responsibilities?
No, and I think what we see is when you look at some of the other choices that Kamala Harris beat out in this process, a person like Susan Rice, who had a lot of foreign policy experience, or a person like Karen Bass, who had a lot of connections and relationships on the Hill, you see that what Joe Biden has done is not said, oh, I'm going to prioritize that portfolio for my vice president, but do what he got as Barack Obama's running mate, which was sort of a broad portfolio and being part of every decision and training her up. And I don't mean that in a pejorative way at all. This is a very big job to be president of the United States. And Kamala Harris is coming into it as a very accomplished attorney general, senator. But Biden is going to give her more experience on every part of the job now, should he be the president, she be the vice president.
You know, Antjuan, in their first public appearance together as running mates last week, Biden and Harris spoke about what they say the Trump administration is doing wrong. This weekend and in the months ahead, how much do you think, Antjuan, they should focus the message on what they perceive as the president's failures versus giving their own vision of what they see for the country moving forward?
Oh, I think they have to continue to do both. As I've said to you privately, Elaine, it takes salt and pepper to make a good meal. And so I think it's important for them to highlight the failures of Donald Trump, particularly from a policy perspective, and stay away from the personality discussions that he would try to drag us into, and also talk about what Democrats are for. Be unapologetic about the offensive things that we can say to our constituencies and those who feel like they need a place because Donald Trump has left them with no place. I think we have to lean in on health care, perhaps the most defining issue of a generation. I also think we have to talk about things that will make the American experiment better. The good news about Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, when you combine their collective experiences, they are ready to lead on day one. And that is going to be critically important because we are in a deep, dark hole thanks to the policy agenda and the failures of Donald Trump and this administration. So I think that is a plus, not to mention repairing ourselves on the global stage. There are people who look at the United States of America now as a joke because of the leadership we have in this country. Joe Biden knows a lot about that, and Kamala Harris will have to lean into that. And so I think that all those things will matter. For Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, this ticket, our offense will be our best defense.
Isaac, in the last minute left, how do you think progressives are going to change a potential Biden administration?
Well, we will see. One thing that we are hearing from Biden a lot since the pandemic started is he talks about the blinders being off and that he feels like people can see what needs to be done to change the system, how the system needs to be changed. What that actually looks like when he's in office, we don't know. He doesn't know. He doesn't know what kind of a hole he's really going to be in when it comes time to take the oath of office. If he does take the oath of office, that seems pretty clear. We're going to have a huge public health problem still and a much, much bigger economic hole that he would be dealing with.
All right, Edward, Isaac Dovere, and Antjuan Seawright, thank you both. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.